Nice to see you all again with an exciting topic, which is totally extraperitoneal repair for hernia. Before we dwell into TEP, let us look at the European Hernia Society hernia classification. So basically we have a P for primary hernia, R for recurrent hernia. And again, depending on the size of the hernial defect, we have 1, 2 and 3. If it is less than 1.5 centimeter, which is roughly when it admits one finger, it is marked as 1. When it admits 2 fingers, that is less than 3 centimeter, we mark it as 2. When it is more than 2 fingers width, then it is marked as 3. If it has not been investigated, then you put it as X. Again, when you have an indirect hernia, it is called as a lateral hernia, so it is marked as L. Medially, the direct hernia is marked as M and the femoral hernia is marked as F. So basically, when someone has a direct hernia which is less than 1.5 centimeter, it is called as an M1. Similarly, when we have an indirect hernia which has got a size of more than 3 centimeter, it will be called as an L3. So that is how the present EHS hernia system works. So this is very important so that we have a standard nomenclature around the world. So let's know this is some anatomy which you would have all learned already, but still before we dwell into a TEP surgery, it is essential that we need to have a small recap of the anatomy of this region. So if you look at the anatomy of this region, you can see here the one which is here, that is the testicular vessels. The one which runs here is the vas deferens, and these vessels are the inferior epigastric vessels. So if you actually put them together, it will have a particular sign called as the Mercedes-Benz sign, which is very much visible when you operate. So with the inferior epigastric going upwards, the vas deferens going downwards and medially, and the testicular vessels going downwards and laterally, this forms what is called as the Mercedes-Benz sign, which is very important to identify. Then the next important thing to identify is the iliopubic tract, IPT. The iliopubic tract actually divides the whole area into two. So we have the IPT here, we have the inferior epigastric vessels here, the vas deferens here, and the testicular vessels here. If you actually look at it, we can see nicely, this forms two different triangles. So here, from here, if you draw a straight line, and you draw a straight line from here, this will be the fold of peritoneum here, which comes out like this. So this vas deferens medially, the testicular vessels laterally, and the fold of peritoneum inferiorly, it produces a triangle. Similarly, the testicular vessels medially, the fold of peritoneum inferiorly, and the IPT laterally, that forms another triangle. So this triangle here is called as the triangle of doom. The triangle of doom is basically, it is called triangle of doom because the major vessels lie in this particular triangle. And the lateral triangle is called as the triangle of pain. As you can see here, all the important nerves which run to the lower limb are in this particular triangle. So together, they are called as the trapezoid of disaster. So when we are placing a mesh, we need to be prudent in not applying any tackers in this area. The best way to remember is the IPT. It is always prudent not to tack below the IPT. All the tacking have to be done above the IPT. So that is the importance of the anatomy of this region. So now let us go into the various steps in doing a totally extraperitoneal repair. First step is accessing the retrodactyl space. This is going to be different from other laparoscopy where you put in a Veress needle and access into the abdominal cavity. While here we need to access the retroractal space. So that will be the first step and the most important step in having a proper space for TEP. Second is the creation of the proper space, either using the camera or using a balloon apparatus. Third step is the placement of ports in appropriate position. There are two ways in which the ports are placed. One is, it is being, if this is the abdominal cavity and that's the umbilicus. So the first port is given near the umbilicus. The second port is given just 2 or 3 finger breadths above the pubic symphysis, and the next one another 2 finger breadths above the previous incision. So this is the classical incision people make in TEP. But there is another variant in which if that's the umbilicus, you make an incision in the umbilicus. The second one you put here, that is the midline port. And the third one, if it is the hernia is going to be on this side, the third port is put somewhere over here, so that we get a sort of a triangulation. So this is another way in which ports can be placed. So either the ports can be in one single line as in this case, or you can try and achieve a triangulation. I shall demonstrate the second method in my video. So after you have placed the ports, we need to continue with the medial and lateral dissection. Once you are complete with the medial and lateral dissection, you need to go for the sac dissection. Once the sac dissection is done, the peritoneum has to be completely parietalized. So once the peritoneum is completely parietalized, then the mesh placement is done. So these are the various steps in doing a proper, totally extraperitoneal repair.